I got mighty Zeus behind me. Now, the Zeus is god of the gods. He killed his father Kronos, and he became the Zeus, the mightiest god of all times, according to the ancient Greek mythology. Right now, I'm standing at the base of the Nimrod mountain, as they call it, or Nemrut mountain, as they call it in Turkey. So I am in eastern Turkey. I am at the place where two huge kingdoms were meeting each other. One was ancient Persia, and the other one was ancient Greece. And here, in this pocket, 2050 years ago, we had a ruthless king who ruled his little kingdom between two mighty kingdoms. His name was King Antiochus I. The story goes that he built his huge tomb, mausoleum, an artificial conical hill, which is behind me. Today, the size of this hill is rather impressive, about 55 meters in height, and the sides from east to west and north to south, 135 meters and 145 meters respectively. It is thought that the last time when it was measured 150 years ago, the height of this conical hill, or tumulus, as it is known in archaeology, was at least 75 meters. So originally, at the time when it was built, if you only take that it is 2050 meters old, at least 125 meters. And the sides, of course, were much bigger than 150 meters radius. So, when it comes to the construction point of view, what do we have here behind us? Instead of natural bedrock, which can be seen on the sides of this tumulus, we have smaller pieces that were obviously either ground in some huge machines or manually broken to very small pieces. And then they place them on the top of this mountain. Which mountain? Well, we are actually on the highest peak of the Taurus mountain range. So right now, we are at the 2,106 meters. This is big. Now, we are standing here at the terrain, which had been eroded for thousands and thousands of years. So when you have something so big, after so much time, it's becoming so much reduced in size. So, tectonic movements, rain, snow, very strong winds during the winter times, earthquakes, everything actually caused that this huge tumulus behind me became so much smaller. But even with what we have, it's so big when it comes to the quantity. So, if it was just 150 meters radius, that's about 22,000 square meters. With a height of 50, that's 1 million cubic meters. 1 million cubic meters. How much material they actually used? Of course, they relied on existing rocks, so they were adding only those smashed, grounded rocks on sides. But we are probably talking about tens of thousands of materials. When you read certain references, the range is from 30,000 tons to 50,000 tons. Personally, I think it was even more than that. Who would have capability to do that? And why would anyone ground 50 or 100,000 tons of the limestone material? Doesn't make any sense. Well, this place is under UNESCO's protection since 30 years back. The year before that, 1986, it was proclaimed a national monument by the Turkish government. This is when they realized they had something so important in their hands. But the place was actually rediscovered 100 years before that, in 1880s, by the German engineer. So for almost 2,000 years, it has been forgotten. But before that, very important ceremonial place. Behind me are the heads of very important gods from the ancient times. Since this was the place where two civilizations were meeting, the Persian and Greek, so we have gods who are basically holding both names. The Greek, like Zeus or Apollon, and also the Persian names. However, when we see the material, which we can see around the beautiful structure in front of me, the heads, it's a different material than the tumulus itself. What does that mean? It means somebody brought it. This is some type of the sandstone which can be found near the rivers. Somebody brought on this height, which was a remarkable feat for itself. But for me, it came much later. Those two different types of materials, two different types of motifs, two different types of construction feats belong to two different times. What is older? I would say the tumulus is much, much older. So, people from the known emperors, like from 2000 or 2100 years back, they realized somebody built an artificial top of the hill. So what they did, they started building terraces. We have 3 terraces total here, east, west, and north terrace. South was just too steep. And what they did on those terraces, they placed their monuments, their sculptures, which represented their gods. Why would they do something like this? Well, for example, for King Antiochus I, this was the highest peak in his kingdom. So if he wanted to be remembered for eternity, then of course he went to the highest peak and he placed his head next to the heads of the main gods. So yes, even 2,000 years later, we do remember him. But was this his mausoleum? Well, the easiest way to see that is if there is any proof that he was a builder, if there is anything hidden inside. His resting place has never been found, and it will never be found on this particular place because it was built much before his reign. Now, it comes to the question, who built it? In Turkey, this was known as the Nemrut mountain. Of course, this is not a mountain natural, it is artificial. But why they use the name Nemrut? Well, in the biblical references, it is known as Nimrod. Nimrod, there is only one actually reference in the Bible when he was mentioned as the great-great-grandson of Noah. So Noah Ark, so the new time started, the Neolithic time started after the flood, 11,500 years back, and he was one in the line who succeeded the great Noah. Now, he is also mentioned in the Bible as the great warrior and the great hunter. From some other sources, from the kingdoms who were in this very fertile area, the beginning of the Mesopotamia, the place where the great river Euphrates, is coming from the lakes. Now we learn that kingdoms like Akkad, Assyria, Babylon, Ur, and even Uruk considered him the guy who established their kingdom. Why? Because he was known because of his great size, gigantic size. He was considered one of the first giants because of his lifespan. It was said that another guy who lived at the same time by the name Gilgamesh ruled 137 years. Why did I bring Gilgamesh? Because Gilgamesh is also considered as the gentleman who established Babylon. When did he live? He lived in the period, not when this epic story came to existence 4,000 years back, but much before that. most probably 3,500 years before that, so 7,500 years back. According to the Sumerian king list, the phases that we had from 270,000 years back until 32,000 years, the phase of the gods, they would rule Sumerian kingdom for, in average, 30,000 years. And then we had 23 kings that would rule 24,500 years, so they would rule 1,000 years. So we had gods, lesser gods, and then we have demigods who ruled Sumer for 3,000 years, and among them is Nimrod. Nimrod or Nemrud, who would rule those kingdoms here 100 or 200 years. And Gilgamesh, 137, he had the same features like Nimrod. He was ruthless, he was great warrior, he was great hunter, he was establishing the kingdoms, and he was capable of building huge structures. When it comes to today's countries of Israel, Palestine, Jordan, Syria, Iraq, Turkey, whenever you have some huge monument from the past, whether it be huge fortress, like in the northern Israel, they call it Nimrod's fortress. Whether it be huge tumulus on the top of the mountain, they call it Nimrod mountain. When it comes to huge figurines, again, they're talking about the Nimrod. So Nimrod, for the people here, was the one capable moving huge rocks, huge stones, reaching, like a Nimrod fortress in northern Israel, 25 tons. Now here, some of those statues are reaching 8 tons. Well, I believe it was possible when we see all the holes on the sides that you could use, tools from 2,000 years back and move them. It would take a long time, but they were doing something that would last forever. But to build this artificial mountain peak, I don't think so. It had to be someone who had the ability to fly over the top of the peak and then, to equally get all these crushed stones on all sides. They are saying that this might be the first pyramid in Turkey. Well, technically this is not a pyramid. You have to have 4 triangular faces. Now, we do not have distinguished 4 corners, even though we can talk about the sides. But why do we talk about the sides? Because on 3 sides we have those terraces built, which really damage the existing tumulus. And now we can see that those terraces have a kind of flat sides, but we don't have distinguished corners. So I would say this was remarkable feat from the distant past. When it comes to the purpose, I've done some energy measurements on 2 locations. One was control location, and it was in the nearby town of Kahta. This is Adiana province. Now, life energy using a special instrument made in the US is showing on the scale from 0 to 100, 25%, which is rather good, but it is a feature of the cities or little towns. Negative ions, very beneficial to our body, only 150 per cubic centimeter. It is very, very low quantity. Positive ions, not so good for us, 500. You have more positive ions, more stress, you are more sleepy, and so on. Magnetic field, rather stable at 43 nanotesla. Again, it is very characteristic for the places like cities, towns. Ultrasound, infrasound, the frequencies are rather regular, from 0 to 20 kilohertz, 30 to 50 hertz. Now, the measurement here, the Nimrod tumulus, are showing that the negative ions are much higher than in the towns. It is about 800, but still, this is not the beneficial level that can affect human health. Again, if I mention the Bosnian pyramid tunnels with the quantities from 20 to 60,000, then you realize what is the healing environment. Here's about 800, which is rather characteristic for the mountain peaks. Positive ions 400, meaning more negative ions, so people feel refreshing in this area, and that's it. life energy only at the level of 15%, meaning that we don't have production of any special energies or energy fields that could help us with the healing or some other aspects. Magnetic field, that was an interesting measurement. That was a large scale from 37 to 62 nanotesla, which is characteristic for the artificial structures from the past, whether they be pyramids or tumulus or some other temples with very specific energies or stone circles. So obviously it's telling us once you have this particular shape behind me, the conical shape, it does affect magnetic field of the surrounding areas. So we have this large scale, and then ultrasound, infrasound, a little bit larger scale from 9 to 24, especially infrasound, it goes all the way down to 0 hertz, from 0 to 50, but from 0 to 5, 0 to 10. These are beneficial energy fields, and they are ideal for the spiritual activities like astral projections and so on. So I would say that the mere geometry of the tumulus behind us is causing those energy phenomena, but I don't think that it was built predominantly to cause certain energy field which will be beneficial in the larger range. So I think that was just that those demigods were exercising how they can change the shape of these mountain peaks and make most probably the series of the tumulus like those peaks in the area. And I would say probably this was not the only one. We know about the existence for 2 more. Probably there were more of them. So I would say that their purpose are probably more in the area of either astronomical features or calendar features or something like that. So this is a special place, and I'm glad that this is a UNESCO site, meaning it will be attracting the people to this place. But again, it should be done more measurement here to understand the true nature and the true builders. And before I leave this very intriguing place in eastern Turkey, Nimrod mountain or Nimrod tumulus, thinking how it's been made, let me mention impossible possibility. Behind us, we can see a lot of limestone. Limestone, it's a natural material, natural stone. And of course, it does erode. But then it does not erode making those little pieces of rocks that you can see over there at the peak. That one has been made artificially. The one possibility is like our guide said, even at that time they had thousands of slaves, hitting the rocks, making the smaller pieces, and then covering the mountain, which is almost impossible and senseless. Another option is that we did have advanced civilization with a spaceship hovering the top of this mountain, and hitting it with the energy beam, which was not melting the rocks, but breaking them to the smaller pieces. And whenever you have such a big amount of material going down, what is the shape it creates? It's the conical shape. Is that a possibility? Slight, but I wouldn't exclude even that one.